AskReddit by awry. What wedding moment made you think they are not going to last long? Deleted. That last one had me burst out laughing. Sorry though, what a pain in the ass. Deleted. That was beyond worth the read. Not the couple getting married but the best man and maid of honor who were married to each other. Best man's speech was all about how hard it was to be married. I've been married for a year and it feels like 100 years. Maid of honor stands up to give a speech and just says ditto. It was so awkward and really brought the whole room down. Brother of the bride stood up and gave a nice impromptu speech about teamwork and having a partner to go through life with. How happy the family was to have the groom join their family. Best man and maid of honor were divorced within a year. Couple who got married are still married 30 plus years later. I sometimes wonder if the speeches actually were helpful in how not to act as a couple. For me, the complex backstory. Bride's brother is gay and has been in a long-term relationship for 40 plus years. At the time he gave his speech about marriage, he couldn't marry the man he loved, and I think his passionate defense of marriage was born from that. When people would say they were against gay marriage because it makes a mockery of marriage, I'd think of that night. The married couple who had no respect for marriage could easily marry, and did over and over again, and the man who stood up and defended marriage could not. He's married now and lovingly takes care of his husband as he battles health issues. When they were doing the vows and the priest got to the for richer or poorer part and she said for richer or richer and maybe for poorer, the officiant was not pleased. I think they made it a year. I've got two. One of my good friends got married and I'd never met her before the wedding because she's just shy. On the wedding day, she was belligerently drunk before the ceremony even started and couldn't even get through the lines she was supposed to repeat. That is, I promise to love you, Dart. She ended up slapping the groom, spilling champagne on her dress, and then crying under a table while he tried to comfort her. They lasted about 4 months. Another one was my wife's friend. She's a very conservative, religious white girl who married a black man. Most of her racist family didn't approve of the marriage and didn't show up. But she planned the whole marriage around race. Like a vanilla cake for her and a chocolate cake for him. The wedding colors were black and white, and even the meals were white meat for her side and dark meat for his. It was extremely uncomfortable as a guest. They lasted 2 years, but broke up because he was abusive and almost killed her, rather than the weird racial tension. The second one reminds me of the guy who does the My Korean Wife comics. If you think of your wife that way. Not at the wedding itself, but I used to work at a David's bridal. Bride came in with tons of friends. We did the say yes to the dress thing. And an hour later she'd standing there in $3,000 worth of stuff and doesn't have any money with her or in her account. She decides she wants to apply for the store credit card. I run it through the system, and she gets denied. She then calls the groom for his info, which, to be fair, people did all the time, and he tells her no. She threw a huge fit on the phone with him, standing on the bridal stage, literally demanding why not? Why? While like an actual child over and over again. I've never seen a 30-year-old age backwards so quickly. She was just a brat. Literally stomping her feet in front of me, all her friends, and the other bride in the store. I was embarrassed. At the end of all of that, she hangs up on him and her friendies. Speechless. Sure enough. Girl came back 2 days later with her man and he applied for the credit card and bought the dress. He was livid and silent. And she was smug as hell. Can't imagine they're having a happy marriage if they are still together. I'm witnessing one from the sidelines now. My wife's brother just got married this past May. Bride's mother is a big DIY person and went a little nuts with extra flowers, table pieces, decorations, etc. Note I said extra. It was already decorated by the venue. She just took it upon herself to buy and add way more stuff. Anyway, a few weeks ago she sends my groom's mom, an email with receipts of all the extra stuff she bought, $7,000 worth, and asked that she pay half since it was technically set up in time for the rehearsal dinner for guests to enjoy. It's causing a huge rift between the newlyweds since the bride is taking her mom's side. Gosh, help, when unasked for, can be the absolute worst. My wife got invited to a client's daughter's wedding. The couple were both drama students. Many of the bridal party were drama students. The maid of honor's toast consisted of tearful declarations of unrequited love to the groom, along the lines of, if it couldn't be me, I'm glad it's my best friend that's marrying you. The best man's speech was a lusty declaration of, if it doesn't work out, call me, babe, like the previous time you called me. Other toasts were similarly weird. A guy at the table I was seated at was a friend of the bride and said to me that he was this close to standing up during the speak now or forever hold your peace thing. I'm still not sure if the whole thing was a bunch of emotionally fucked up 20-year-olds, or one big piece of performance art. I did my undergraduate degree in literature and there was a lot of overlap with the drama students. None of this surprises me in the least. They were always bragging about how incestuous they were. By which they meant they all slept with each other. I was maid of honor. Me, best man and the couple went into a separate little room to do the signing stuff. Bride excused herself to go to the bathroom and the groom started making pretty mean remarks about her cooking, she's passionate about, to the officiary. She came back, heard they were talking about cooking family meals together and gave him the warmest smile, thinking he had praised her. He scoffed awkwardly and changed the topic. That always stuck with me. He wasn't laughing with her but at her, behind her back. They lasted 7 months. This one is so heartbreaking. Hope your friend is doing better now. A fun light-hearted dance with the groom followed by a close and slow dance with her male best friend. How long did that marriage last? He ended up at the emergency room between the ceremony and the reception. He went out the night before with his sister and friends and got plastered. They had to hold a cold pack to the back of his neck to keep him vertical during the wedding photos. Marriage lasted 30 days until they had a fight. She left the house and he filled the U-Haul truck with everything but her clothes. The groom showed up to his own reception wearing a t-shirt with restroom sign style stick figures depicting a bride and groom captioned "Game Over." The bride had a bruised eye covered by makeup. Also, it was visible that walking was hurting her. I might think it was because the corset was pushing on broken ribs. Took her 3 years to run away. That's horrible. When my sister married her first husband, she mouthed to my father walking her down the aisle, "I can make this work, right?" They were divorced 6 months later. My whole family knew it wasn't a good idea since the original engagement a year prior. When the bride drank vodka out of a pint glass and spent a significant amount of time making out with another guy on the dance floor. The poor groom. This makes me sad. What a soul-crushing thing to observe at your own wedding. Yikes. When the bride tried to playfully feed the groom some cake, pulling it back once it got close to his mouth. The third time she did this, he slapped it out of her hand and stormed off. In the ensuing awkward silence and wide-eyed staring, we all knew it wouldn't last. Surprisingly, they were together for nearly 2 years before the bride eloped away with her stepbrother. No one saw that coming. That's a weird Pornhub plot. Prior to my wedding, I'd ask my husband to practice dancing with me because I'm uncoordinated, due to a disability. He blew me off and said we'd be fine. As we were dancing, he spoke in my ear, not even quietly. "What are you doing? What's wrong with you? You're embarrassing me." We lasted 2 years. Leaving was the best decision I ever made. Wow. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Happy to hear you're doing better without that piece of shit now. My uncle when he broke his neck trying to break dance on his stag do. He went down the aisle in a wheelchair. She divorced shortly after. He can walk again now, but because of his surgery he cannot turn his neck. One of my go-to stories because it's fucking insane. Wedding videographer here. I think my favorite moment was when I was sitting at the miscellaneous table with all the randoms and the girl next to me, the groom's ex, drunkenly admitted to sleeping with the groom a few months prior. I was at a wedding. I was a +1 for my date. The bride sat down drunk at our table and started talking to us. She then told me that she slept with her ex right before walking down the aisle. She fucked her ex in her wedding dress in the bridal suite. She then downed the last of my drink and went off to the dance floor. I was left speechless. I didn't know anyone but my date. Less than a year later the bride and groom were divorced. He got so fucked up at the reception he had a fist fight with her cousin in the toilets over coke. He told all the other cousins to fuck off. He hit on my aunt. He told my cousin's child to come back to him when she was 15/16. And he forgot to bring his child to the hotel. I was at a wedding when a phone went off during the ceremony. In the middle of exchanging vows. It was the groom's. He took the call. They are divorced now. Edit to at, I believe it was a cousin calling to ask if they were late for the wedding. Unless he's a premier surgeon or other some sort of indispensable doctor, why the fuck did he even have his phone on him? I didn't have mine. One of my friends got married. Afterwards she looked at me, crying, and said, "What did I do?" They were separated by the time the plane landed from their honeymoon. He was a good guy, she was a mess. The betta fish and the flower centerpieces lasted longer than the marriage. Better fish and the flower centerpieces, explain please. When they got married illegally in high school. Two 16-year-olds from different states who had to lie on their certificate to get approved by the state. It was annulled when the father of the groom found out. I actually know a happy version of this. My HS English teacher's friend and her boyfriend took a bus to the next state over where you could get married at 16, and so they eloped in secret and came out about it after they graduated and have been married for over 40 years and counting. Where to start? The best man was the groom's coke dealer who dressed in a tux, the only one in a tux. The groom was high on coke and giggled throughout the whole ceremony. The host of the party alternated between arguing with his wife in Russian and running up to us every time he saw us, the bride's friends, the only people that showed up from her side for the wedding, whenever he saw us in groups of 2 or more, and tell us don't smoke weed. If she, his wife, won't let me smoke weed in the house, then you guys can't. Every time we grouped up. You know you fucked up when your plug is the classiest person at your wedding. The morning after the wedding at campfire coffee, the new bride turned to the groom, asked, "Are you going to wear your ring every day because it kinda makes you look like a farrot?" Those of us their side glanced and took deep sips of coffee. I think it lasted 4-6 months. What the fuck? My brother's ex-wife. Throughout the exchange of vows, she was looking at everyone but my brother, making sure all eyes were on her. Later, she instructed the photographer, a family friend who was cheap, to mingle and get shots of people being happy. Within 10 minutes, she'd summoned the photographer back shouting, "Whose wedding is this? I meant get shots of people being happy for me." Edit, thought I'd add they broke up when she cheated on him. Apparently, that marriage she was desperate for was only good while it brought her attention. Like if she needed everyone's approval of her marriage. So insecure. The groom showed up drunk after golfing with buddies all day. The bride in her vows said for richer, left out the poorer. The bachelor party and the bachelorette party were in Vegas at the same time. Across the hall from each other. The bride and groom got in a huge fight on the last night of the trip, and when I was leaving I said, "I'll see you guys at the wedding," to the groom, and he replied, "I'm not sure there's gonna be one." There was a wedding, but they were divorced within 18 months, I believe. One of my friends was the best man at another friend of ours' wedding. His best man speech included this line: "I prepared some lines for tonight, but the groom sniffed them all in the bathroom." 3 months later there was a divorce due to a coke problem. when the groom ran up and punched the bride during the reception in some kind of drunken melee. Like, intentionally or accidentally because she was in wrong place at the wrong time? We need more details on what happened. Two friends of mine got married, and when they gave their vows, the guy started laughing at the part about being faithful. Oops. I once watched a live stream of the wrong Vegas wedding. The link I was given for a friend's wedding was incorrect, and during the exchange of vows, the groom got to the part about being faithful, and the bride visibly and audibly chuckled. It was hilarious to watch, but I bet they didn't last long. At my boyfriend's sister's wedding, the groom got drunk before the vows and smoked weed after the vows. Was cross-faded as hell and made a fool of himself. When we went up to congratulate them after, she refused to be near him or take pictures with him. It was awkward. After the speeches, basically everyone left. Family was still around and they opened gifts. Someone gifted nice champagne and the groom tried to open it and dropped it and it shattered. Bride stormed off screaming. Groom got upset and started cussing out the air. They still went to their honeymoon together in Florida and she got pregnant almost immediately. Maybe 7 months into her pregnancy she kicked him out because he slept with her roommate. They got divorced when their kid was 6 months old. But it's for the best. The dude is a pose and wasted a lot of their money by being selfish on their day. I worked at a museum that also doubled as a wedding venue in the summers. As part of the wedding package, the museum would stay open after hours for the guests only, so I'd just sit there and greet people basically. One wedding got particularly rowdy. Almost everyone was drunk. People were jumping into the fountain. Someone vomited in said fountain. At one point, the bride is crying. Turns out the groom and one of his groomsmen were screwing upstairs in one of the bathrooms. A fight ensued between the groom and the father of the bride and cops were called because it really got ugly. Entertaining for me, but I felt so bad for the bride. Deleted. The groom and best man had a dancing routine for getting into the church ceremony and they got nearly halfway through it, and I guess the groom felt they hadn't received much applause and wows from us the attendees and decided to go back to the entrance and start all over. Sigh. Why is no one having a good time? I specifically requested it. The entire bridal party, including parents of the wedded couple, entering into a betting pool of how long the marriage would last. At the wedding reception, I the best man won. Price is Right rules, at 14 months. Surely you confide in your friends or even your parents about the whole thing, but who am I to say? Groom got into a fist fight with the father of the bride. Split after 4 months. Context: groom and bride's dad. Actually, most people in these families, if I'm honest, have pretty aggressive drinking problems. Father-in-law has always hated him. I wasn't around for what actually set it off, but it ended when the bride got in the middle, got an elbow in the eye, and the happy couple left for the night. This was in rural Canada. Not Letterkenny, but basically Letterkenny. I'd say the father-in-law won the fight though. The best man's speech was about how selfishly the groom had acted during a night out and telling him to treat marriage differently. The groom had a best woman instead of a best man. Nothing wrong with that, but her toast left the whole room in awkward silence because she was clearly in love with him. What did she say? Portuguese wedding. Fist fight broke out at the head table during the reception. Between two groomsmen. They were arguing about which of them had slept with the bride first. Groom was oblivious. He came home from work early one day 2 years later and caught her in bed with another man. Surprised it took that long. Midnight buffet was amazing though. The most beautiful wedding I've been to ended in divorce. Venue was where the groom's father is buried and he cried as he made his vows to the bride there. Turned out he'd been cheating on her 4 months and they divorced a while later. Something so repugnant about marrying someone you're cheating on practically over your father's grave. To date, it's the only wedding I've been to that ended in divorce. Deleted. The bride and groom did the first dance, then spent the rest of their reception completely apart from each other, getting shit-faced with their own separate friend groups. The only other dancing all night was the bride dancing with her high school friends, the father-daughter dance and the mother-son dance, during which the groom was crying. The best man's speech didn't mention the bride at all and basically boiled down to groom, "You're married now but our bond is older and stronger. All of our hunting and fishing trips together are the best thing in our lives. Can't wait for more." Such a sad, desperate atmosphere. They made it a little over 1 year. I used to be a wedding singer and I played a wedding like that once. We had a hard time figuring out who the groom was because he was never anywhere near the bride. The first dance was delayed because the wedding planner had such a hard time getting the two of them in the same place at the same time. Afterwards they both stayed on opposite ends of the ballroom. In the 6 hours of the reception I don't think they ever spoke to one another. My best friend's wedding is tomorrow and I told her about how I've heard several wedding photographers, videographers say that shoving cake in the face is almost a for sure factor that they're going to divorce. She told me, "Oh yeah, I told him not to, but he probably will anyway, so we'll see how this goes." Update: she put the cake in his mouth respectfully, but he booped her nose 2 or 3 times, which wasn't huge, and they just laughed it off. I cried a couple times during this wedding because their love does seem very genuine, so sorry if this wasn't the update you were hoping for, lol, but I'll give a 1-year update. I've heard some version of that cake smashing story so many times I feel like there needs to be a SAR about it. Marriages survive affairs more often than they survive an unwanted cake smashing. When the groom started off his speech by saying, "We all know I didn't want to get married, but we're here for bride and child we had together." 1 year, 3 months later they were finished. That is so sad. When he smashed the cake in her face and hair, then went off drinking with his buddies. In 12 weeks, she filed. Good thing I didn't buy an expensive gift. He complained she was mean to him throughout their dating life. The day before the wedding all of the groomsmen and the groom's friends told him not to marry the girl. Like straight up. They lasted less than a year. His third wedding. Same venue and same after ceremony driving away vehicle as the first 2. That is definitely a bad sign. They got secretly married at the local town hall out of spite to the girl's father, who did not agree with the relationship. This happened right out of high school and they divorced during my sophomore year at college. Spite, the foundation of all great marriages. The groom took the stupid cake thing to an extreme. The bride had given him his bite and mushed a little on his chin or nose. He then took a piece and mashed it into her face so hard that I was expecting her to end up with a bloody nose. Cake and frosting got up her nose, in her eyes, down the front of her dress, etc. The bride had to go get cleaned up, had her makeup redone, and was ugly, crying within an hour of saying, "I do." He didn't give a fuck. Had a buddy, this was almost 30 years ago, BTW, whose girlfriend told him that if he mashed the cake in her face, it was over. She told him at least 10 times in my presence. Day of the wedding, his buddies had gotten to him by making the whip noise and saying he had to show her who wore the pants. She fed him his piece, he mashed her face, she walked out and had the marriage annulled. I was kindly included in a last-minute +1 to the wedding of a family friend who I'd never met before. At the rehearsal dinner, or the German equivalent, the Polterabend, the guests smashed ceramic and porcelain items on the ground. I was fresh in Germany, so this was all pretty out of context and frightening, but my boyfriend explained that it's a tradition reminding the couple that life is sometimes difficult and you have to work together to clean it up. The bride kind of half-heartedly motioned to the groom to sweep it up. He did a little bit, then just moved on to talk to his friends, leaving most of the shards strewn around the yard. Additionally, I don't think I saw the couple talk to each other once over the next 3 days of celebrations. It was a gorgeous wedding, And I'm so grateful that I was invited. Really good way to begin living in a new country, but it wasn't surprising to hear that they divorced a few years later. Oof, how symbolic. My husband was the best man at a wedding. The bride was a nightmare. Not just during the wedding, but in general everyday life. All of the friends hated her, and she had no friends of her own. We knew it was doomed when, during the portraits, the bride was making everyone miserable as can be. The groom said, exact words, "I'll just send her to therapy. And, if that doesn't work, we can just get divorced." And X200B. Edit, for emphasis. Therapist here. I'm never optimistic about this situation. People going to therapy for other people's satisfaction is like court-ordered rehab. It's rarely successful if your heart's not in it.